This is Saeed, the Codogrammer, and I'm back with another developer news. Now, it's been a while since I've done one of these, and it's not because there hasn't been anything happening in the industry. There's been loads of really interesting things happening. The reason I haven't made one of these for a while is because I've been super busy. I've changed jobs 3 times in 1 year, which is a lot even for me, but more about that another time. Okay, so just before we get into the headlines, if you hear any strange noises or snoring in the background, it's not me, it's my cat Hugo who's asleep behind me, and I don't think he'd take too kindly to being moved while he's asleep, so I'm just going to leave him there for now. Hopefully the noise doesn't interfere too much. Okay, let's go on with headlines. Java 19 is now available. JUnit 5.9.0 released, followed by 5.9.1. Spring Cloud Dataflow 2.9.6 is now out. Spring Framework 5.3.23 is now available. AWS have announced the general availability of incident detection and response for enterprise customers. Micronaut Framework 3.6.3 is now released. Quarkus 2.12.2 final is now out. Docker announces Docker extensions. MongoDB is now available as a pay-as-you-go service on Google Cloud. Heroku will soon completely stop offering their free tier. Gradle 7.5 released. IntelliJ IDEA 2022.2 followed by 2022.2.2 out now. Before we continue, just a quick word about developer news. If you do not want to be the last person to know about important things happening in the software industry, the answer is simple. Just hit subscribe. It doesn't cost anything and it's well worth it. And if you find this format useful and informative, just let me know by hitting the like button. Now let's get back to the news. Java 19 was released on 20th September. Now this is yet another release as part of their 6-month release cadence. It's non-LTS, which means non-long-term support, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. LTS releases are every 3 years. There are quite a few interesting preview features added, with record patterns and virtual threads, for example, and lower level enhancements which you can check out on the release notes. There are also many code modifications which you can see at this link, which I will also include in the description below. Now for me, the most interesting is virtual threads, which are part of Project Loom. Now normally one thread is one operating system thread, but this one-to-one relationship is not the case with virtual threads. With virtual threads, the JDK is the one that interacts with OS threads in a much less blocking way than the current approach. So a very exciting initiative, but just remember it's preview only for now. JUnit 5.9.0 was released on July the 26th, 2022, with a follow-up of 5.91 on September the 20th. Now these contain bug fixes and improvements such as support for open test reporting format. There's the introduction of a new callback and also improvements to the @method source annotation. You can now configure a cleanup mode for the @temp_dir annotation. So for example, if you didn't want to delete the temporary directory in the case of a failure, and that could be really quite useful to investigate why something is failing. Spring Cloud Dataflow 2.9.6 was released on September the 14th. Now, Spring Cloud Dataflow is the Spring streaming system that allows you to manage and configure streams and batch jobs. You can think of it as an abstraction which can be backed by Kafka, Google PubSub, and many other messaging middlewares. This release fixes a Postgres SQL driver vulnerability, but there are other small improvements too. You can check out the full list of changes at the link which I will include in the description below. Spring Framework 5.2.23 is now available as of September the 15th. Now keep in mind that this is not the Spring Boot version, but rather the Spring Framework version. It contains a bunch of small improvements and bug fixes. Again, you can find the full list of changes in the release notes. AWS has launched general availability of AWS Incident Detection and Response as of 15th of September. Now this is only for enterprise customers, but definitely worth checking out to see if it can make a difference to keeping your organization's services up and running. Now think about the monitoring and dashboards and alerts that you create in your business. Well, now Amazon experts can now work with you to define these important metrics and proactively monitor them for you. AWS incident management engineers can then connect you with an AWS expert to help you solve the problems that you encounter. And I think that could be pretty reassuring if you have critical services running in the cloud. Micronaut Framework 3.6.3 was released on September the 9th. Now this is mainly bug fixes and patches. If you don't know what Micronaut is a full stack JVM based framework for building modular microservices. Think a Spring alternative with fast startup times and low memory footprint, even for larger code bases. However, since I haven't reported the news for a while, the more interesting release is the preceding Micronaut Framework 3.6.0 release, and this release supports GraalVM 22.2.0. It integrates with test containers. The associated release of Micronaut Tracing includes tracing support for OpenTelemetry and much more. Quarkus 2.12.2 final was released on September the 13th. This is again mainly fixes and upgrades. Now, if you don't know what Quarkus is, well, it's very similar to Micronaut. Whereas Micronaut came out of the work on the Grails framework, Quarkus is backed by Red Hat, the IBM-owned company. It tailors your applications for Graal VM. Again, fast boot times and a container-first approach are the goals. By the way, Graal VM is a VM written in Java, developed by Oracle, so they don't have to waste their life writing C++ anymore. And it also has native image support and fast startup times as goals. Docker announces Docker extensions and Docker Desktop for Linux at DockerCon 2022 back in May. Now you have Docker Desktop for Linux, no longer something just for Mac and Windows users. They also announced Docker extensions. Now these are available on all operating systems. Just get the latest Docker Desktop and you will see the extension section. You can use existing extensions, think third-party plugins, or you can build your own. As of April the 12th, you can now get a Mongo Atlas pay-as-you-go service up and running in Google Cloud. Atlas is a managed service now with no upfront costs and allows you to scale easily. Now, quite disappointing news, Heroku will be discontinuing its free tier starting from November the 28th. Now, Heroku will be removing all of their free tiers. Heroku is owned by Salesforce, and the company blamed abuse and fraud of their free tiers, which was kind of tying up their support services and a lot of their resources. Now, this is significant because a lot of people try out new ideas on Heroku for free and then scale their businesses and applications from there, but not so anymore. Let me know in the comments below if you're going to be affected by this change. Gradle 7.5 was released in July with a follow-up of 7.5.1 in August. Now this includes support for building Java 18 and running Gradle itself with Java 18 and Groovy 4. It now has much faster continuous or automatic building upon detecting changes. This was slow on Mac and Windows users with Java 9 or higher. Continuous mode works by passing the -- continuous flag to your Gradle command after the tasks. And of course, there are many other fixes and improvements. IntelliJ IDEA 2022.2 is out with IntelliJ IDEA 2022.2.2 follow-on already available. There are performance and security enhancements. It now comes with Spring 6 and Spring Boot 3 support. There are UI UX improvements and much more. Java gets another boost on Visual Studio Code, and it seems like the team are really doubling down on Spring features. You can now see whether a bean is a singleton or prototype, etc. For example, for a running app. There are also Maven and Gradle enhancements, so check those out. The Azure Toolkit in IntelliJ now has Azure Kubernetes Service available. There's a lot more you can do using the Toolkit plugin, so worth checking that out. It's particularly interesting to me at the moment because I am using Azure quite a lot. All right, so now let's take a quick look at interesting tech events which are happening. Kotlin Conf 23 is on April 12th to 14th, 2023 in Amsterdam. Now it's a bit far away, but there is a call for speakers at the Kotlin Conf. So if you are a Kotlin user and you're doing something you want to share, make sure you check out the link in the description below. The AJava conference is in London on October the 3rd to the 6th. The Kong Summit takes place in San Francisco on September the 28th to the 29th. The Kafka Summit is in Austin, Texas on October the 4th to the 5th. The ML Ops Summit is on November the 9th to the 10th in London, and they've got some really interesting speakers, so definitely check that out. The Google Maps Platform Hackathon takes place on November the 14th online, so why not see what you can come up with? You can make submissions until November the 14th, and they have a total prize fund of $24,000. All right, so that wraps up the news. If I missed anything that would be interesting to developers, make sure you leave it as a comment in the comment section below. It just helps keep the rest of the community informed and up to date. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time.